Mama Adaeze akara stopped rising the same week 3 babies were born with silver eyes in Umuora Village. Nobody connected the two things at first. How could they? But by the time people understood what was happening, it was already too late. It started on a Wednesday morning. Mama Adaeze woke up at 4 o'clock as usual, said her prayers, and went to her kitchen to prepare the day's akara. For 20 years, she had been making the best bean cakes in all of Umuora and the surrounding villages. People drove from Enugu, from Nsukka, even from Onitsha just to buy her akara. Soft inside, crispy outside, golden brown and perfect. Her secret was simple: good beans, fresh pepper, onions, and most importantly, the right eggs. She soaked her beans the night before, ground them smooth that morning, added her spices, and began mixing in the eggs. 6 eggs for 1 big basin of batter. That's how she always did it. But this morning, when she cracked the first egg, she paused. Something felt different. The shell was harder than normal, and when the egg finally cracked open, the yolk was darker. Not the bright orange she was used to, but deeper, almost red, like blood mixed with palm oil. She shook her head and cracked the second egg. Same thing. The third, the fourth, all of them had that strange dark yolk. And there was a smell too, very faint, like metal mixed with something sweet and rotten. It made her stomach turn. But she had customers waiting. She'd already collected money from people who ordered in advance. So she continued mixing, telling herself it was just a bad batch of eggs. She heated her oil and started frying. The akara wouldn't rise. They came out flat like pancakes, hard like stones. The oil spit and bubbled strangely, and the smell that came from the frying pan made her stepdaughter Adana, who was visiting, come running from the parlor. "Mama, what is that smell? Like something died." Mama Adaeze stared at the ruined akara in shock. In 20 years, this had never happened. Not once. She threw the whole batch away and tried again with a fresh basin of batter. Same result. The third time, same disaster. By noon, she had wasted 3 baskets of beans and 18 eggs. Her customers were calling, asking where their orders were. She had to refund money, apologize, tell them she was not feeling well. It was the most shameful day of her business life. "Mama, those eggs," Adana said, picking up one of the unused ones and holding it to the light from the window. "There's something inside. Something moving." Mama Adaeze looked closely. At first, she saw nothing. Then, as she stared at the egg her daughter was holding up to the sunlight, she saw it, a shadow inside the egg, shifting, pulsing, like it had a heartbeat. She slapped the egg out of her daughter's hand. It fell and cracked on the floor, and what came out was not normal egg white and yolk. It was thick, silvery, and it moved on its own, spreading across the floor like it was searching for something. They both screamed. Adana grabbed a broom and swept it out of the house, pouring hot water on it. The substance hissed and evaporated into silver smoke that rose and drifted toward the window, moving against the direction of the wind, like it was trying to get somewhere. That same week, on Thursday morning, the first baby was born with silver eyes at the village health center. Mrs. Chidima's baby girl. The midwives had never seen anything like it. The baby's eyes were the color of dirty rainwater, metallic, reflecting light like coins. Mrs. Chidima had been eating eggs from the woman at the Udala tree throughout her pregnancy. She said the eggs made her strong, stopped her morning sickness, made the baby kick vigorously. Now she had a baby whose eyes scared even her own mother. On Friday, 2 more babies were born the same way. One at the health center, one at home with a traditional birth attendant. Both mothers had been eating those eggs. Both babies had those strange silver eyes. And all 3 babies did something that newborns should not be able to do: they watched people. Really watched them. Their eyes followed movement from the moment they were born, focused and aware, like they were studying everyone who came near. By Sunday, the whole village was talking. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. And it all pointed back to one place, the Udala tree. To that old yellow bus. To that woman who never smiled. The egg woman came during Harmattan season 3 years ago. One morning, People woke up and saw an old yellow Peugeot bus parked under the big Udala tree near the abandoned primary school. A woman sat there on a small stool with a table in front of her. The sign said Fresh EGGS in charcoal writing. She was ancient. Her skin looked like dried cassava peel, her hair completely white, and her eyes were the color of dirty rainwater. She never smiled, never greeted anybody. You come, she tell you price, you pay, she give you eggs. That's all. But those eggs were perfect. Big, brown, with yolks so orange they looked like small suns. And cheap too, 200 naira when others were selling for 350. Within weeks, half the village was buying from her. Mama Adaeze bought 20 crates over 2 years. Her akara business was booming. Until that September morning when everything went wrong. The beans wouldn't rise no matter what she did. When she cracked the eggs that day, something was different. The yolks were darker, almost red, and they had a smell, faint, like metal mixed with something sweet and rotten. She threw the whole batch away. That same week, Brother Okonkwo's chickens stopped laying after he fed them leftover eggs from the woman's store. For 5 weeks, nothing. Then suddenly, they started again, but every egg had 2 yolks. Every single one. His wife refused to touch them. These ones are not normal, she said, and she was right. The Okafor twins developed a rash after eating egg sauce. Round red marks that appeared overnight on the exact same spot on both children's bodies, like something had marked them. When the rash faded, they started speaking in their sleep. Not Igbo. Not English. A language that sounded like wind passing through hollow bones. Long sentences, back and forth, like they were answering someone. In the morning, they remembered nothing, but their eyes had changed. Darker. Older. Baby Chioma was the one that made people truly afraid. 7 months old, her mother Nkechi gave her mashed egg for the first time. The baby smiled and ate it all. That night, Chioma didn't sleep. For 3 days straight, she lay in her cot with her eyes wide open, not blinking, not crying, just staring at the ceiling like she was watching something move across it. Her body was stiff, her fingers spread wide. On the 4th day, she blinked and everything seemed normal again. Except Chioma started growing. Fast. Too fast. By 8 months, she was walking. By 10 months, speaking in full sentences. By 1 year, she looked 4 years old. The doctor called it advanced development, but when he examined her, his hands were shaking. That's when Pastor Emmanuel decided to find out the truth. He drove to the Udala tree on a Tuesday afternoon. The bus was there, table was there, but the woman had vanished. The bus door was unlocked. Inside, it was empty except for dozens of thin, papery skins covering the floor, like molted snake skin but larger, more complex. When he picked one up, he saw patterns on it that looked almost like writing, symbols he'd never seen before. Through the front windshield, he saw them. 7 figures standing in the tall grass of the old primary school field. Impossibly tall, 7, maybe 8 feet. Thin like bamboo poles. Their skin was pale, almost translucent in the afternoon sun. They stood perfectly still, and as Pastor Emmanuel watched, frozen in terror, one of them bent down. Its body folded in ways that should have broken bones. It squatted low, and from between its legs, something dropped. An egg. Large and brown. It rolled into the grass. Pastor Emmanuel understood then. These things, whatever they were, this was their offspring. These were not chicken eggs. They had never been chicken eggs. He ran to his car and drove straight to the village chairman. But the chairman laughed at him. Pastor, you don't see film too much. Those are just some tall people, maybe Fulani headsmen. The next morning, the bus was gone. The woman, the table, the eggs, all vanished like smoke. But that evening, the 7 holes appeared. Workers clearing the field for a new market found them. 7 perfect circles in the ground, each one about a meter wide, going straight down. The sides were smooth like glass. When they shone lights down, they saw nothing but darkness. When they dropped stones, they heard no sound of them hitting bottom. And heat was rising from those holes, intense heat, like standing near a blacksmith's forge. Something had been living in those holes, growing in them. And now they were gone. That's when the children started changing. Not just the ones who ate the eggs directly, but their younger siblings too. Any child in Umuora under the age of 5 began showing signs. Some grew faster than normal. Others developed strange abilities, a 6-year-old girl who could predict when it would rain days before it happened, a 4-year-old boy who spoke perfect Igbo, English, Yoruba, Hausa, and 3 languages nobody could identify. The babies born that year were different too. 17 babies in 12 months, in a village that normally had 5 births a year. And their eyes. Some had eyes that were too bright, too aware. 3 were born with silver-gray eyes like the egg woman. They tracked movement from the day they were born, followed conversations, watched people with an intelligence that made nurses refuse to be alone with them. Mama Adaeze still had the last crate of eggs hidden in her cupboard. She'd kept them without knowing why. One night, she finally gathered courage to crack one open. Inside was not a yolk. Inside was a small, perfect sphere of something that looked like mercury but moved on its own, pulsing with faint light. When it touched air, it began to grow, stretching, taking shape. She saw the beginning of something forming, something with too many joints, with skin that shifted between pale white and translucent. She screamed and smashed it with a pot. The thing dissolved into silver liquid that evaporated into smoke. The smoke smelled like that same sweet rot she'd noticed before. She burned the remaining 11 eggs that night in a fire so hot it cracked her cooking stones. But as they burned, she heard sounds coming from them. Not the crack of shells, but something else. High-pitched, almost like singing, or crying, or calling. The smoke that rose was thick and silver and it moved against the wind, like it was trying to find its way somewhere. 3 days later, Mama Adaeze disappeared. Her daughter found the house empty, food still on the table, her wrapper and slippers by the door. Like she had just stepped out. But she never came back. Pastor Emmanuel was the one who finally understood what the egg woman was doing. He found old stories in the church library, tales from before the missionaries came. Stories about the Ndi Oka, the pale spirits. Beings from somewhere else, somewhere between the world of the living and the world beyond. They couldn't reproduce on their own in our world. They needed hosts. Carriers. The eggs weren't food. They were seeds. Every person who ate those eggs became a carrier. The thing inside the egg didn't grow in your stomach, it grew in your blood, in your bones, changing you slowly from the inside. Children were most vulnerable because their bodies were still forming. The eggs rewrote them, made them into something new. Something in between. And pregnant women who ate the eggs, their babies would be born already changed. Already connected to whatever intelligence guided those pale creatures. The egg woman herself, she wasn't human. She was just a shell, a puppet, animated by one of those things to move among people, to distribute the eggs, to spread them as far as possible. That's why she never ate, never drank, never spoke more than necessary. There was nothing really alive inside that old body. The 7 creatures Pastor Emmanuel saw were the original ones. The parents. They had laid hundreds of eggs over 3 years, and through the woman, they had distributed them across the entire region. Not just Umuora, she had been seen in 6 different villages, always with the same yellow bus, the same charcoal sign, the same perfect eggs. Now those eggs had hatched. Not in fields or nests, but inside people. The night that Pastor Emmanuel figured this out, he heard singing. He stepped outside his house and saw them, dozens of children walking through the village in the darkness, all moving in the same direction. The Okofo twins were there. Baby Chioma, now looking like a 6-year-old despite being barely 2. Others he recognized. And some adults too, including Brother Okonkwo, moving with the same strange, fluid walk. They were all heading toward the old primary school field. Toward the 7 holes. Pastor Emmanuel followed at a distance, his whole body shaking. At the field, the children stood in a circle around the holes. The heat rising from the holes was so intense he could see the air wavering. And then they began to descend. One by one, the children climbed down into those holes, disappearing into the darkness below. The adults went last. As Brother Okonkwo reached the edge of a hole, he turned and looked directly at Pastor Emmanuel, though it was too dark to see clearly. And he smiled. Not a human smile. Too wide. Too many teeth. Then he stepped off the edge and fell into the darkness. By morning, 43 people were missing from Umuora. Most of them children. The police came from town, searched for weeks, found nothing. The holes were still there, but when they sent ropes down with cameras attached, the footage showed only rock walls going down impossibly far, and at the very bottom, a faint blue glow. They poured concrete into the holes. Tons and tons of it. But the concrete never filled them. It just poured down and disappeared, like the holes had no bottom at all. Eventually, they gave up and built the market on the other side of the field, leaving that section empty. A fence went up with a new sign, government property, and no entry. But on certain nights, people still hear the singing. Dozens of voices underground, in that strange language. The sound comes up from the holes, rises through the concrete that never set properly, and drifts across the village like smoke. And baby Chioma's parents. They never spoke about what happened to their daughter. But Nkechi's stomach began to swell 6 months later. When people asked if she was pregnant, she would just smile and say nothing. Her eyes had turned gray. The same color as dirty rainwater. 1 year later, a trader from Abekoliki came through Umuora market. She was telling people about a strange woman selling eggs from a yellow bus near their old market. The eggs are so fine, she said. Everyone is buying them. Big and fresh with yolks like the sun. Nobody from Umuora said anything. What could they say? The trader wouldn't believe them. Nobody ever believed until it was too late. And somewhere, in another village, in another state, an old woman sits under a tree next to a yellow bus with a charcoal sign that says Fresh EGGS. Her eyes are grey like dirty water. She never smiles. She never speaks more than necessary. And the eggs she sells are perfect. So perfect. Until they're not. Bell subscribe for more chilling African horror stories. Thumbs up medium skin tone, like, share, and drop a comment. What would you have done if you were in Umuora that night? Open book follow for more original tales from the heart of Africa. And don't forget to turn on notifications, so you never miss the next story.